Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started.
Here is why I am not buying another rental property right now. So I just got back from my vacation now here in August. I went up to Canada, which I have to say, when I told people I was taking a vacation and taking time off to go to Canada, and more specifically to go to Saskatchewan, I have to say I got quite a few raised eyebrows about why. But it was a trip in the making that I was incredibly excited for, and something that I've been planning to do for years. Now, if you've been listening to our Lady Landlords podcast for a while, you know I live down in the Dominican Republic during the winter. And the complex that I live in is mostly snowbirds, right? These are a lot of other people that have retired. And my husband and I are actually the youngest owners in the entire complex, thanks to real estate. And it's something that is just a little bit different for us to be with people that are kind of the same age as our parents or grandparents. But over the years of living there, we have really built close relationships with a lot of people there. Interesting fact, most of the snowbirds that we meet that have their vacation homes, their second homes down in the Dominican Republic, owned rental properties at some point. So I just always thought that was interesting that all these other people that were doing financially well, retired early, whatever that may look like, somehow they've all been connected to real estate in some way. Varying degrees of success, but they've all dabbled within this world, which I think is just really, really fascinating. But because of these relationships, my husband and I had decided to go visit quite a few of our friends up in Canada. So we took about 2 weeks off. We put our 10-month-old daughter in tow here, and we went to, I think it was like 4 or 5 different cities. We got to see lakes. We got to see the mountains up in Canada. We got to be complete tourists. It was a fantastic vacation. Would I recommend doing 6 flights in 2 weeks and a 7-hour road trip in the car with a 10-month-old to anybody else? No, I don't think I would. But I got to be honest, this was one of those vacations where I feel like I came home and was a little bit more tired than maybe when I left, but it was a fantastic time. But here we are at the end of August, and a lot of other people are kind of in the situation of taking time off before school starts back up, before dropping the kids back off to college, summer vacations kind of winding down. And I thought this would be a really great time to just readdress and assess where you are within your rental portfolio before we close up the rest of 2026, because you know what it's going to be like. We got Labor Day around the corner here. All of a sudden, you're going to look up, and then it's cooking for Thanksgiving, and then you got the holiday season, and everybody checks out at the end of the year. So it's a great time now to start thinking about what we want to have happen for the rest of 2026. So I'm going to give you an action step or 2 in this, but I want to address, because I get a lot of questions about this, and I will say it again. Right now, I actually do not want another rental property. I recently had a member of our Lady Landlords Inner Circle group ask me if I was aggressively buying rentals right now. And my response to her was, no, I'm not aggressively trying to do anything, but kind of keep myself, my husband, and my baby alive. That is the bandwidth of where I am right now. And what I think is interesting is I'm not buying property because I'm scared of the market, because I've learned over the years ways to pivot and be able to buy rentals in kind of any economic situation. I am not buying because I changed my mind that rentals aren't the way to reach financial freedom. Rentals have given my family a completely different view and way to live, and that will never change. I would double down on that all day long. And it's not because there aren't deals out there. I actually also was sharing last week, I had a member of Lady Landlords contact me with a fantastic deal And I didn't have to do any work even to go find it. From my networking, from growing community, I have people that reach out to me on a regular basis with, hey, I'm selling this. Hey, I came across this deal. Do you want it? So it's none of those. It's odd to be in a place as an investor where I'm actually saying no to opportunities. And if you know my personality, it's really hard for me to do, right? Because when I see an opportunity, when I see something that could make money, I usually kind of go after it. And right now I have to kind of temper myself. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this, the real reason that I am not buying rentals right now, is because my goal was to build a portfolio that supported the way that I saw living my life. I was not looking for another 9 to 5 job. Originally, I wasn't even looking to retire from my 9 to 5 job. I thought real estate would just be kind of supplemental. So when I realized the power of rentals and realized that I could make it my full-time living, I didn't want another full-time job. I didn't want a place where I said, okay, now I have to get up, I have to commute, I have to be here for 40 plus hours a week. I had to miss lunch times. I had to sacrifice the gym because I have this other career. That wasn't the goal of what I was doing in real estate, but it wasn't always that way. There was absolutely a time when I was aggressively building my portfolio. And I did that for about 5 years, I would say. No, 5, 6 years. So it started in 2018 was really when I started building that. So, and I want to be clear on timeline here for you because I feel like too many people out there, and I think this is more of like an Instagram effect, are just like, woohoo, bought a rental, made $1 million, quit my day job, and just kind of like moved on. And that's not really how this works. And I want that to be very clear. And I try to do that with this podcast or other content that I put out in the social media world on Facebook and Instagram and everything. So I really want to be clear on that timeline. But I really aggressively built my portfolio, started in 2018 and really through 2024. So that would be 6 years there that I really focused on growth. 2025, I did actually buy a property, but to be honest, it was a place where I was really slowing down because I was pregnant throughout 2025. So really about 6 years of aggressive properties. Now, the first property, you've probably heard my story on here about how I kind of got started in real estate, but just as a quick recap here, when I first got into real estate, I completely fell into this. That was not my goal. This was not my intention. This was not something that I really set out to do. My original first property was bought purely because my husband and I were looking for a place for us to live. We lived in New York City at the time, very expensive, and we needed a way to be able to bring in some extra income to support us being able to pay that mortgage. So we started with what's called house hacking. House hacking is when you buy a multifamily, you rent out the extra space to be able to bring in that extra income. That was our only intention. After that, I really kind of didn't know where to go. And I think that's why I talk a lot about strategy within the Lady Landlords Facebook community, because at the beginning, I just bought that property and that had a purpose. That was, I needed a personal place to be able to live and I needed to keep my mortgage payments down. But the property after that, I kind of was just shooting in the dark here. I felt like I was just kind of going with whatever kind of came my way. I remember after that first property, I started looking out of state, right? I just spent all of my money buying that first property in New York. And I needed something that if I was going to buy, I felt like I needed a much lower cost of living area. So I remember looking into outside of Philadelphia, looking into, I loved Indianapolis as a market. I remember looking in Arizona. I remember looking in all these other areas, but I didn't have a context for things. I was just kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall, shall we say. But what changed for me, and I think what has helped my track, was I kind of stopped that. And I stopped that early, luckily. But I really kind of sat down and was, because I was so overwhelmed with so many different options out there of, ooh, I can go buy Section 8 housing. Oh, I could go buy in Ohio. Ooh, I could go do a new build. Ooh, I can go buy multifamily, single families, midterm rentals, short-term rentals. I think since there was just so much out there, I felt like I just needed to step back and organize. And maybe that helps me with kind of the type A personality that I have, that I really like kind of that organization. And I know that's not a skill set that comes naturally to everybody, but if it does not come naturally to you, that's a place that you really want to be able to get some support. Because I feel like the biggest game changer for me was taking that step back and saying, what am I really trying to do with this? And getting clear and focused. And then I kind of put on blinders, if you will, because I felt like then I was doing a lot of networking at that time and people were coming to me with these deals. Hey, I have this deal in Ohio. I have this deal in Tennessee. Hey, let's go partner up and do something in upstate New York. And it was detracting and actually taking my time and my energy away from what I actually was trying to do. Once I got very clear on what I was looking to do, at that point, then I said, I wonder if I can kind of recreate mine and my husband's income. At first, I really was just starting with my husband's income. But once I really had that intention, I now had a way to measure a property more than just doing a deal analysis, more than just saying, hey, does this cash flow? Hey, what is the cap rate? But now I was able to look at every single property and say, does this make sense? Does this get me closer to my goal of replacing mine and my husband's income? The answer was either yes or no, right? And I'll just give kind of a little example of that. Some of the properties I was looking at when I was looking at buying out of state, once again, let's take Indianapolis for an example. I remember looking at some properties there. They were much, much cheaper costs. And I remember going and showing my husband, like, woohoo, look, I found this opportunity. Here's this property here. Look, it would make $100 a month. And great, we're talking about, I think it was like $100,000 house. So $100 a month, okay, not bad. I'm in the black, right? And I remember my husband being like, Becky, $100 doesn't even cover like dinner out in New York City. Like, what are we going to do with $100? And I was like, good point. And it made me think that what I didn't want to do was just collect up a ton of houses for $100. That wasn't getting me any closer to my goal. Was that putting cash flow in my pocket? Absolutely. Would that have appreciated over time? Most likely. But did that actually help me replace a six-figure income and cost of living expenses in New York City? No, that didn't. And I didn't envision having this portfolio of 100 properties, and some are in New York and some are in Tennessee and some of them are in Indiana. That also did not sound incredibly appealing to me. So once I was able to really get focused, every property that I purchased over those 6 years had a purpose. I didn't feel the pressure to buy properties faster. I wasn't competing with anybody. I was looking to buy the right properties. It was almost like finding the right piece of a puzzle. You can't just mash your puzzle piece into it and make it fit because it never really looks right and it causes more problems moving forward. To me, it was take time to find the right piece. And once I found it, I was ready, I was prepared, and I was able to move forward. And those were the properties that I bought. It took me about 3 years to replace a six-figure income. And I think it was because I was waiting for the right properties. And I did that in a strategic way. At this point, fast forwarding now 8 years, I'm in a different space. I don't need to aggressively buy those properties. I'm in a situation where I have 17 sets of tenants across 2 countries. Here in the United States, my properties are in New York, and I also own in the Dominican Republic. I have people coming up for lease renewals. I have bookkeeping. I have systems. I have legal structures. Now I have a baby. That one, from a financial perspective, changed how beneficiaries work and insurance works and trusts work and all of that space. But my time's also in a very different place. I have heard from every parent I think I've spoken to, even since I got pregnant, saying, time's going to go fast. My biggest regret is not spending that time at the beginning. And I feel very fortunate that I had that time. I was able to stay home. I created my own maternity leave because I don't have a boss I have to answer to. I was able to decide what that looked like. And my husband was also able to stay home. We still had to manage our rental properties, and we did a lot of work up front before baby came to be able to do those things. But that's a space that now needed more attention. That's the logistics of it, right? Changing insurance and beneficiaries and setting up accounts and having a new person in your world. But beyond that is the personal side of it. I wanted to be there for those smiles in the morning. I wanted to be there for, those first steps, which we are just working on. She is 10 months old, and Eve is already doing little tiny steps, which is the cutest thing. And to be honest, like, brings tears to my eyes every single time she does it, because I'm like, Where did my baby go? I understand she's a baby, but still to see your kid taking some steps so early on, like I said, it's a change. It's crazy that you're so proud and so excited, and yet it's kind of grieving a piece of your life that now is past. And I'm very excited for it, but the duality of it is crazy. So really the space that I've been in is family first. That's why I built this portfolio, not to give myself another day job, but to be able to say I can be there for these moments and I can enjoy these moments. And I can also take a break when I need. Yesterday, I said to my husband, I said, "You're taking the baby. I'm going down to the pool. I'm going to go read for a few hours. I just need some time off." And we were able to negotiate for that. And it was a great balance to be able to do. And I can enjoy being present as a mom because I'm able to take those breaks and work those pieces into my life. And then what I'm also doing is spending time cleaning up some of the processes and some of the things in the business that I haven't been able to focus on because I have been aggressively acquiring properties. I've spoken a lot over time about really making sure to build systems into tenant management as you grow. I think you need to start building systems for managing your rental properties, even with just one simple property. That is the way to keep your time at a minimum, in my opinion. In my opinion, you do not need more time when you have more tenants. You just need better system. When you have a fully functioning system put in place with how you process leases, with how you do the marketing for any type of vacancy, with how you deal with tenant turnover, all you have to do now is you just have another set of tenants that's running through that process, that's running through that SOP. You're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off being like, "Wait, but I don't have a lease. Wait, this needs to be updated. Wait, I don't have pictures for my new listing." We need to get those things clean. So I've been able to have a lot of those systems in place. But because we've grown and grown so rapidly, there's certain things that also just change over time. So I've been spending time refreshing things. I have wanted to do certain CapEx projects on some of our rental properties. Those are not things that are necessarily going to increase my income or bring in better rental value, but these are things that I need to do for the regular upkeep of our property. I want to keep our properties safe, habitable, pretty, attractive to applicants and to new renters. I want to make sure that I'm working on my renewals. I want to make sure that I have those processes streamlined for my tenants. And that's really where I've been focusing. I have once again switched accountants. I've really outgrew my last one. And that's something that now systems need to change. And working with a new CPA always brings me back to really refreshing also what my bookkeeping looks like. And those are the things that I'm deciding it makes more sense for me to clean up what I've built and be able to move forward. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, maybe those earmuffs have come off. If there is an amazing creative opportunity out there that kind of lands in my lap, well, I'll entertain it. I mentioned I had a lady landlord call me a few days ago with a very interesting opportunity. And that's something that we're in discussions about what to do with that. Does that mean I'm going to buy it? No, not at all. But are there avenues of something that I could do with that property? And do I still feel that it's worth my time to look into it? Yes. But I am not now and have never been in a place where chasing doors or chasing deals has ever made sense to me. My goal has always been to own the least amount of rentals for the most amount of money. And it's been like that since day one. And that is still where I sit today. Right now, it's not an income or a profit that I need more of. I'm comfortable living with what I have, but I want to make sure that it stays that way in the long term. And I want to make sure that my lifestyle and the life that I've built thanks to real estate stays in this space. Now, I get a lot of questions about how I figured out what that number was and when I knew I was able to retire. I do have an entire episode about how to calculate your freedom number. And I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. I'll drop that link down in the show notes. So you'll have that. So if you're saying, "Oh, where do I know when I should be in the acquiring stage or the growth stage?" that episode will absolutely help you. But I want to make sure that you take a moment right after this podcast wraps up here and think about what is the next 3 months for? What do you want to have happen before the end of 2026? Spend time, think about it, and then sit in that space. But I want you to think, are you in acquisition phase? Are you in that space where growth is really what's needed now? You need that more cash flow coming in. You're still hunting deals down. You have to put that energy into networking to be able to grow that portfolio. If so, you're in acquisition stage and you need to carve out the time to nurture that and build that moving forward. Or are you in optimization stage? Are you saying, hey, you know what? I've grown quite a bit. I do need to do some work on improving my tenant management systems, or maybe even creating tenant management systems. You could be in that and really thinking about, what do I need to do to improve on the properties, or to be able to bring in the extra cash flow from those properties by making a few tweaks. And then the last place to consider being in is the enjoy phase. If you've grown your portfolio and your tenant management's under control, well, this is what you've worked so hard for. Give yourself the space, the time, the freedom to enjoy what you've built. Whichever space you're in, acquisition, optimization, or the enjoyment phase, I want to encourage you to remember that your portfolio and your journey is different from everybody else's. All because I have a certain amount of doors, or you have a certain amount of doors, and the person that you see and really respect in Lady Landlords has some other amount of doors. This is not a competition. We all have to really think about what's going to be the best fit for us and get to that number. If you want to own 1,000 doors, that is awesome. I will cheer you on, but I'm not going to be there next to you, and I'm not going to be there competing with you for the 1,001st. And I want to make sure that all of our members understand that this journey is unique to you, and that having 1 or 2 properties can absolutely change your life. And that's all you need, nothing more than that. So let me know down in the comments where you happen to sit. Are you in acquisition phase, optimization phase, or are you in enjoyment phase? These phases can change now in 2027. But let me know where your focus is going to be for the rest of 2026. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. I will see you back next Tuesday for the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.